just reassembled the Bonneville after it's sitting for a year and a few months. Took the carbs off, cleaned out the pilot jets, reassembled it, put it back on, started it up, which it took a bit of a while to do, and then I noticed there was fuel just pouring out from between the carbs, right in between them, dropping on the top of the engine, all over the electrical connectors. Yeah, I love that. Fuel electricity's good. And onto the floor. So I have to take them apart again, see what's leaking. So you disconnect the fuel line by pulling it from this side to pull it off the little spigot that it's on. And to help get the carbs out, there's 4 bolts around the inside of the airbox. Take all the bolts out and the little top hat washers that come with them. That'll loosen it up, give you just enough room. Okay, throttle position sensor, got to disconnect the wire. I hate doing these connectors. So there's a little tab I push down here, and then I'm going to pull on it, but I need both hands. Yeah, knowing that the vacuum caps on these fail a lot, I use a piece of tubing here to join these two together. So when I'm doing balancing, I just pull this tube off, put a cap on this one, put the balancer on that one, and then off we go. General running, put these onto this piece of tube on together, both of them, and that stops it leaking. I'm just loosening the one clamp on the intake rubber such that the thread doesn't come quite out of there. I find that's far enough. The other one stays on. Now I've got the fun task of taking the cables off the carbs. So I use this 10mm for, and I use the little screwdriver to coax the leaded end of the cable out, which is a little tricky to do, something you just have to figure out. So getting these back rubbers, which are attached to the airbox, off, I'm just going to grab the airbox and pull it backward. You can see the result right here where it's pulled that back. Now you just grab both carbs, I'm doing it one-handed, up and down, pull it backwards while you're doing it, and eventually those come out of the spigots there, but it's a tight fit to get them out. So here they are, about halfway out. Notice how I've pushed them down. When you pull them back initially, they go right back into those things. Bloody annoying. So you sort of tip them forward, push them down. You can see the other one's off and nice and low, and that's ready to start moving across. This one I've got to go just a tad further, and then I can start pulling it out. As you can see, the carbs are half out now, and now I'm going to work on getting the little ball end, or this end of the other cable out of its little attachment down there, and it helps to sort of half turn it a bit. Going to need both hands for that as well. Right, so there's the carbs on the bench. Now it's the left one that was leaking, definitely, and it seemed to be coming from the inside, so there's one of two sources. It's either the gasket around the float bowl, or it's this one here. And if I wiggle this, I notice there's very little resistance to turning here, so I'm a little suspect about whatever O-ring seals they've put in here. But I'm going to check this one first, it's easier. See if that's the cause of a leak. This is the seal that goes around the edge of it. And what I've been doing is checking to see that it's raised. I've never actually had one of these leak. And it is raised all around, so it hasn't shrunk. And it will reseal. So I'm pretty convinced that one will work. Right, so I've got the fuel tank sitting on my workmate. I've attached the carbs. Now I'm going to turn the fuel on. And we'll see if we can spot a leak somewhere when it fills up. Yeah, now it's back on the workbench. There does seem to be a little bit of fuel along this fuel supply rail. Nothing coming out of the carbs, and they are full. So, because I'm going to have to drain them. So to get to the seals on this tube, I'm going to have to separate the carbs. There's 2 big screws here I can probably take off. I'm going to have fun with that, getting it back in. I think I've done this before and that spring's a pain. I've got to take the choke bar off. I don't think I can get away with just doing one. I may have to do both. Pull the whole choke bar off first. They are a little corroded, so I'm going to use this impact wrench to very gently, with just one tap, get them open. That way the screw head doesn't round out, but it will knock it out. Right, so there's the choke bar. The screws went through in the top. There's a washer underneath the screw head. There's a spring that actually fits on the end of the choke lever, and there's another washer that fits underneath the choke bar. So you've got a washer either side of the choke bar, and this spring fits on the end of the choke pull rod right here. So it keeps it all tight. Nearly lost this little ball here. Just a funny piece of green grease on it. That comes out of here, and there's a spring in there. So this is the spring detent you feel when it clicks over. So good job I spotted that, otherwise I might have lost the bugger. Put this nut on the end of it. It's got to come off. And also there's a sneaky thing with this. I've got it down to the last screw. They made this too tight of a fit over here, so that the screw won't actually come out past the grounding strap there for the heater, and I haven't got a socket that will fit the heater. There's not enough room between that and this, the idle adjustment screw post. So hopefully, just swinging it back like that, I can get the carb off at this side and look at the seals. And 2 more things to watch for that I'd forgotten about was this hose joining the carbs together, and that spring that was right in there. Dropped out, rolled on the floor, under the workbench, you know the drill. Pushes up against this thing. It's going to be fun to put back together. Okay, let's have a look at these seals. This one feels proud. This one not so much. I'm going to have to measure them. And actually there's no need to measure them. I tried this in the adjacent hole, and it's a bit of a push to get that seal in. Try the other end where I think the seal is smaller, and it just falls in. It falls into the hole. So it has shrunk under the influence of alcohol in the fuel. I'll have to get more O-rings. I wonder if I've got one that size.